that kind of helped me in the draft situation. Well, I guess it's going to be my turn. My grandfather was World War I, my father in World War II, my uncle in Korea, and another uncle had been in the Coast Guard. Now Jim McCloughan was going to be in the United States Army.
The year is 1968. You had just graduated from Olivet College and you accepted a job at South Haven High School, and you were drafted.
Well, yeah, of course, I'm all geared up to start my profession. I paid for my own college education. My parents were factory workers and they had 3 boys, so since they couldn't pay for all of us, we each paid for our own education. And here I am ready to start something that I dreamt about for a while, and my whole thought process had to change. I had to understand that now I was not going to be a teacher and a coach, but I was going to be a soldier, so I'd better gear it up to be the best soldier that I could be.
It's a hard question, I know. Can you tell us about those 2 days?
Well, it's a long story. Those 2 days are really tough, and we were combat assaulted in, which meant we came in on helicopters. And we've kind of decided that we tried to count up numbers and heads. We had 89 guys, so we were on about 13 helicopters. They couldn't land because it was a hot LZ, which means they were getting fired upon as they were coming in to drop us off. So they made us jump from about 10 feet up. In that particular case, we had some injured as well as, a bad situation coming into getting fired upon. 2 helicopters went down. One, they got the crew out right away. The other one, they couldn't quite get the crew out. So we sent a squad out to protect them while they tried to get a helicopter in and get the crew out. Couldn't do it. So they came back in with the crew, and then we got them out from there. The first helicopter that went down, everybody got out, but this helicopter, they're coming in, and they're coming in from about 200 yards away from the position that we had set up, the daytime perimeter. I saw a guy lagging behind, and all of a sudden everybody got in, and he's 100 yards back, and he collapses. So I jumped up right away, think about anything, my job now, and I sprinted out to him, slid in next to him like I was sliding into second base. I said, "Where are you hit?" He said, "I'm not hit." He said, "I hurt my knee jumping out of the helicopter and getting thrown to the ground," he said, as we crashed. And he says, I need some help. I said, "Well, hold on to your weapon because you're going up on my shoulders and we're going in." So I carried him and weaved through the crossfire, my men firing at me and the NVA coming behind me at us, and neither one of us was touched, and that's the first man that I saved of the 10 Americans and 1 Vietnamese interpreter in that battle.
One of the things that we're doing in this Peaceful Warriors Project is talking about not only your service overseas in the military, but when you come home, the service that you give after you come home. You were a teacher, a coach, a counselor, a mentor, a dad, now a grandpa.
Well, I think I'm a peaceful warrior because I understand how lucky I am to be an American, and because I have fought next to those who would give even their life to be able to preserve what we enjoy day in and day out. I've often said, if you want to thank a veteran for your freedom, enjoy it. Don't misuse it, don't abuse it, but enjoy it. Sit around the table, have some great laughs. Sit around the table and eat your hot dogs and hamburgers and enjoy it. But don't forget who gave it to you. I'm a peaceful warrior now because I've been in the position where it wasn't peaceful. It was nothing but chaos, killing, and bleeding. And now I can be peaceful. I can live in a country where I know that I'm going to be okay.
We were talking a little bit earlier, and you told me a little bit about the toughest question that you got. And I thought that was such an interesting story. Tell me about who asked you the toughest question that was ever asked of you.
Yeah, well, I've been in front of a lot of people through my years, and they've asked me a lot of tough questions, which I've never been tripped up, and I wasn't tripped up in this one either. But a sixth grader stood up. It was the last question of the day, in the school that I had visited and given a talk to, and the kids were all seated out in front of me, and she stood up and she said, "Have you ever killed anyone? And how did it make you feel?" We speak at 125 words a minute, but we think at 525 words a minute. And those 525 things were rushing through my head, those thoughts. And I came to the conclusion that I had to tell her the truth. I had to tell her so she understood as a sixth grader. And I had to leave her on a positive note. So my answer was this. You know, that's the worst thing about war. Sometimes you have to take somebody else's life so that yours is not taken. But I've never been proud of it. As a matter of fact, it's bothered me my entire life that I took somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's father, somebody's brother, somebody's uncle, somebody's friend. But you know what? I was a combat medic, and I got to save lives. And sometimes we would wound the enemy soldiers, and we had to get them patched up so we could ask them questions in the rear area. So I got to save their lives on certain occasions. So I did what I felt I needed to do. I told her the truth. I told her so I felt she understood. And I left her on a positive note.
You're a teacher. You're a 40-year plus teacher. You taught psychology. You were a coach. That's kind of a wild combination in some ways. I don't run across. Often coaches are history teachers. I don't know why that's happened in my life, but that's kind of went on there.
Or PE teachers.
Yeah. There you go. But you came home and applied for the same job that you had been accepted for 2 years earlier, and you got it. And you spent your life working with kids.
Yeah, and my salary over the 2 years went from $5,800 to $8,200. Just enormous. Yeah. I couldn't wait to get back. I think I'd like to tell you a story that I've told quite often. On the second day, I had been yelled for out in the middle of a rice paddy, medic, and it was screamed, medic, and I got there, and it was a man with a stomach wound. So I can't move him. His organs are going to come out if I move him. I get everything placed where I think it should, pressure bandages on. Now I take my water. I'm right out in the middle of the rice paddy. Bullets are flying by me, and I got hit in the right arm right here with an AK-47 at that moment, but kept right on working. Dragged him in this trench line. And I'm trying to think about how I'm going to carry this man out of here through the crossfire. I can't throw him over my shoulder or his insides are going to come out. How am I going to do it? And I finally decided I'm going to cradle him and get as low as I can and swerve and weave and maybe not get hit. All of a sudden, this incredible thought came over me. It had been since I was a little boy that I told my father that I loved him. We just didn't do that in the 50s and the 60s. I didn't tell my brothers that. I didn't say that to my friends, especially male friends. Girlfriends, a little different. Maybe. And I had a conversation with my Lord, and I said, God, if you get me out of this hell on earth so that I can look my father in the face and tell him that I love him again, I'll be the best dad, the best teacher, and the best coach that I can possibly be. And this incredible peace came over me. It was no longer in my ballpark. Whatever happened in that battle needed to be happening. And if I got through it, I needed to keep my part of the bargain. In the O'Hara airport, I ran to my father, threw my arms around him, told him that I loved him. He did the same, like we'd been doing that for the 24 years of my life at that particular moment.
Your dad served in World War II.
He did.
He was so he may have had kind of an idea of what you were coming back from. And you know, as you're getting off there at O'Hare Airport, did you ever talk to him about the comparison of services? Is that something he couldn't talk about?
No, we didn't talk about that. I could tell on my father's face when I got on the plane to leave for Vietnam that was one of the hardest moments of his life, because he knew enough to know that may be the last time that we see each other. And if you can think about that fact that we hadn't said we love you to each other, he probably was even thinking about that at that moment, you know. Gee, I wish I'd have told him before he got on the plane, you know, but you just didn't do that. Just the way it was.
So service, like almost anybody that's served, changed your life.
Changed my life forever and ever. And it made me understand how lucky I am to have been born in the United States of America, and to be born to parents who knew how to love their children. Yeah, and parents like my father and your father, who have fought in wars prior to that, and now it was my turn.
You watched a whole community grow up. In 40 years as an educator, you watched the whole community grow up.
I was coaching grandsons when I left. Grandsons of kids that I'd coached in the beginning.
Many people, Jim, would look at you and say, Medal of Honor, that's what they're going to remember about you. But you, 2 years in the Army, 40 years as an educator. I got to believe you believe that the educator was where you had the most impact.
I've been very lucky. I've had some great individuals come through my athletic programs in my classroom. And my children, I couldn't have designed them to be better individuals than they actually are. So been very lucky. But yeah, you know, you need to look back on, I think, the appreciation and the fact that I did make it, and I was able. I often say I'm blessed more than I deserve. Well, the principal came to me when I was retiring in 2008, and along with him came the athletic director, and they said, I'd had both of them, by the way, on teams, and both of them in class through the years. They said, Jim, do you know how many lives you've touched? And I said, whoa, wait a minute, I'm the lucky guy. Do you know how many lives have touched me? And I stayed in one place, and they just kept coming. So I'm the lucky one to have been touched by so many individuals. And I'm the lucky one to have been able to come back and actually do what I wanted to do. If you think about those 18, 19, and 20-year-olds that didn't come back, what could they have done? How could this world be different if their life had not been taken from them? How can their parents live each year and not have them at special events and at holidays, and when big things happen like the birth of a child? And none of those guys ever were able to be fathers and husbands for the rest of their life.
Thank you, Jim McCloughan, for your time. I appreciate that.
This has been my pleasure, and I'm grateful to you, and I'm grateful to all that you do for the Warriors.